think there's a feeling of disbelief that they can't understand why they have to continually saddle up and ride down to Washington and make these appeals for something.
Every single person, and then you also participate in, in taking billions of dollars of government subsidies. I think that could be part of it.
Well, Amazon responded to AOC's comments saying these allegations are absurd. Amazon associates receive industry-leading pay starting at $15 an hour. And you may remember when Ocasio-Cortez fought against Amazon building a second headquarters in New York, which cost the city an estimated 25,000 jobs and $4 billion in annual wages. So she's still at it. Well, now some business news for you. Turmoil at Target as the retail giant is crippled by outages across the country. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, is here with what went wrong. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. It was a rough weekend for Target, a rough weekend for people shopping at Target. Target reported 2-hour outages at stores across the country on Saturday afternoon. That is prime shopping time. They say that this was an error caused by maintenance that was going on during their system. So not only did they have issues on Saturday, but also an unrelated issue on Sunday that caused major outages for people trying to make purchases with credit cards. So Target putting out a statement saying that neither incident was a security incident and that no payment information was compromised during that time. But people on social media were complaining about the long lines on Saturday, saying that it was much worse than Black Friday.
They were all over social media,
Yes.
And then journalists saying, if you're at a Target having problems, let us know.
Let us know.
So it turned into a huge thing.
Yes.
So let's talk about what could possibly become a huge thing, wine for breakfast.
Yes, it is officially rosé season. Driscoll's, though, taking a little bit of a twist here, making rosé flavored and colored strawberries and raspberries. Now, they say they have the sweetness of peaches, but they look very much like the rosé wine. They have the aromas of a dry rosé wine. Driscoll's, though, say that they did use traditional breeding systems and processes to make these and that they are GMO free.
So where would they be located in the grocery store?
Just in the wine section or very
I was
good
going to
question.
say, because, you'd have to be a little careful with what you're feeding your kids.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Heather.
Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 8 minutes until the top of the hour, and the president and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually agreeing on something.
I think that we have a very real risk of losing the presidency to Donald Trump if we do not have a presidential candidate that is fighting for true transformational change in the lives of working people in the United States.
And, of course, President Trump grabbed onto that using AOC's words against her, tweeting in part, I agree. And this is the only reason they played the impeach card, which cannot be legally used. The New York Democrats shooting back, though, saying, quote, opening an impeachment inquiry is exactly what we must do when the president obstructs justice, advises witnesses to ignore legal subpoenas, and more. AOC is one of at least 64. Girl becomes the youngest person ever to climb an iconic mountain at Yosemite National Park. It took Selah Schneider 5 days to complete the 3,000-foot nose route on El Capitan. She celebrated with some pizza, of course. Now the bad. A man thought he was spending $9,000 on a villa in an online government auction, but this is what he got. The villa actually turned out to be a 1 by 100-foot strip of land between two driveways. It's worth about $50, by the way. The man asked Florida's Broward County to void the deal. He claims that he was told state law does not allow refunds. Read the fine print. And finally, the ugly. A Mariah Carey superfan wanted a Mariah-themed birthday cake, but instead she got one with Nobel Prize-winning scientist Marie Curie. Instead, the cake mix-up prompting a special shout-out. The real Mariah tweeting, this could have been me if only I hadn't failed remedial math. Happy birthday. That's great. I love that one. Well, that wraps up this hour of Fox and Friends First. Happy Monday, everybody.
How the candidates are pushing for their fair share of the spotlight.
Champion Gary Woodland. was an exciting Sunday and a fiery finish for golf's newest champion.
Only add to escalating tensions. A spokesman for Iran's atomic agency says they will exceed the uranium stockpile limit set by the Iran nuclear deal in the next 10 days. According to Iranian state TV, this as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says that the U.S. does not want war with Iran, but are considering a full range of options, vowing to protect and guarantee safe navigation through the world's most important passageway, the Strait of Hormuz.
It's unmistakable what happened here. These were attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran on commercial shipping, on the freedom of navigation. The Iranians should understand very clearly that we will continue to take actions that deter Iran from engaging this kind of behavior.
Iran continues to deny any involvement, and exactly what actions Pompeo is referring to are unclear, but the escalated rhetoric is alarming Democratic leaders.
We have absolutely no appetite for going to war or to be provocative, to create situations that might evoke responses where mistakes could be made.
Meanwhile, some Republican lawmakers have a different view.
The fastest way to get the fire and fury of the U.S. military unleashed on you is to interfere with the freedom of navigation on the open sea. These unprovoked attacks on commercial shipping warrant a retaliatory military strike.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff says there's no question Iran is responsible for these attacks, but that the president's policies are making matters worse.
The maximalist pressure campaign has maximally failed and only heightened the risk of conflict.
As for Iran's announcement just hours ago, no response yet from Secretary Pompeo or the administration. We will see exactly how lawmakers here, as well as the administration, handle this news. It's only Monday. We're just getting started, guys.
Sure is. Thanks, Griff. We appreciate it. All right, Iran pushing the U.S. to the point where the White House may have to act.
Illinois Congressman and Lieutenant Colonel in the Air National Guard, Adam Kinzinger, says it is time to send a message to Iran that America has had enough.
If I was making the decision, I think we've reached that line. I don't think that's wrong for the president's structure, their ability to mine this area and also maybe surface-to-air missile sites.
Well, Iran said today that it will break the limit of its uranium stockpile under the nuclear deal.
Mexico will have 6,000 National Guard troops along its southern border by tomorrow. It's all part of a new plan to crack down on the flow of migrants amid heightened pressure by the United States. Soldiers stopping 4 trucks this weekend, carrying nearly 800 people. This video shows officials breaking a lock on a semi-truck and helping them out. The increased enforcement is a directive from Mexico's new president.
Jury selection begins today for the Navy SEAL accused of murdering an ISIS prisoner. Eddie Gallagher, a decorated veteran, has pleaded not guilty. And earlier this month, a military judge dismissed the lead prosecutor from Gallagher's war crimes case for secretly tracking emails with the defense's legal team. A judge released Gallagher from custody as a result of that possible interference. We'll see where it goes from here. And disgraced attorney Michael Avenatti is due in a California courtroom today for a status hearing. The celebrity attorney is accused of stealing millions of dollars from former clients, including adult film star Stormy Daniels, who says he kept their settlement money. Avenatti is also accused of lying on tax returns and to investigators during bankruptcy proceedings, and he faces a separate extortion case with Nike in New York.
My, oh my. President Trump slamming the investigation into his campaign and hinting an alleged plot against him may have gone all the way to the Oval Office.
It was a setup, in my opinion, and I think it's going to come out. I hope it's going to come out. We're going to find out very soon. When you look at Strzok, these FBI guys that were lowlifes, when you look, because the FBI is the greatest, but the top people were absolute lowlifes.
Do you think President Obama was behind it?
I would say that he certainly must have known about it because it went very high up in the chain.
The DOJ is conducting multiple probes into the investigation's origins and possible misconduct by intelligence officials. Former President Obama has not responded to President Trump's accusations.
All right, before they face off on the big stage next week, several Democratic candidates will go head-to-head today. 10 contenders will face questions from low-income Americans at a forum in Washington.
Well, this as a new Fox News poll shows former Vice President Joe Biden maintaining a heavy lead. Jackie Heinrich takes a look at where the candidates stand.
The biggest takeaways over the election. Numbers showed the president trailing 5 Democrats in a hypothetical matchup. Former Vice President Joe Biden comes in first with a wide margin, with 49% of primary voters saying they'd vote for him over the president's 39%. Senators Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Mayor Pete Buttigieg also came in ahead of the president, although by a much smaller margin. Of the 20 Democrats that will participate in next week's debates, 11 had 1% or less support. The two biggest names polling that low are New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper. Polling also showed the top picks for the Democratic nominee, with Joe Biden again in the lead at 32%, holding on to his lead since May. Bernie Sanders, though, had a pretty significant drop in support. Back in March, he garnered 23% of the vote. Now he's down to 13%.
Polls go up and polls go down. But the other part of the poll, if I heard you correctly, Chris, is that I am beating President Trump fairly decisively, which is consistent with all of the polling that I have seen.
The poll also measured the president's approval rating, with the majority, 53% of respondents, saying they disapprove of the job that he's doing, 45% approving. The president launches his re-election campaign on Tuesday. Overall, fewer voters said they would be scared if President Trump won re-election than felt that way in 2016. But in hypothetical matchups with Democrats, he never hit above 41% support. In New York, Jackie Hein.
October alone. So how does this make the job of border agents even more difficult? Here to weigh in is former special assistant to the immigration commissioner during the Reagan administration, George Rodriguez. George, thank you for being with us this morning. You say that this presents a whole new slate of challenges for border agents. What are some of those challenges?
Well, first of all, it's the linguistics. I mean, the Border Patrol is having to learn brand new languages, and many
people think that the administration has gone too far in enforcing our immigration laws in this country. Why do you think that number's so high?
I fault the media directly, and of course the Democrats. There's this constant sympathetic tone that you hear from the Democrats and from the media, and they don't understand that all we're doing is excusing bad behavior. We're excusing illegal immigration, and as long as we continue to do that, we're going to continue to reward it, and it's going to continue. I mean, it's just bad behavior. We cannot afford to do that. Folks need to understand that we're talking about protecting our country, protecting our borders, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, you talk about that sympathy, and this new group of migrants is really seeing a lot of support. There's been online donations. The mayor of Portland, Maine, where, interestingly enough, a lot of these African migrants are coming through into the United States, says that he doesn't think that this is a problem. So what is your response to that?
He doesn't think that it's a problem right now, but I guarantee that it won't be long before he does. The fact of the matter is that you've got culturally, linguistically, ethnically and racially different folks from his community, and eventually there will be conflicts that he's going to have to address. The other aspect of it is that these folks are not the best educated folks coming from their country, and so he's going to have to address that whole issue of employment and economics in his community. He has a big heart right now, but I guarantee that when the pocketbook is hurt, that heart begins to shrink.
All right, let's move over to a topic about legal immigration here for a second. And this is a new idea. The administration proposing that if you sponsor somebody to come here legally into the country and that person ends up on any kind of welfare, that the sponsor of that legal immigrant will have to pay restitution, basically, pay back that agency that the welfare was taken from. What do you think of this plan?
I love it. I think that it's very, very important that we understand that we should import folks that are going to contribute to America as quickly as possible. The situation that we've got the Center for Immigration Studies that did a report earlier this year that showed that 63% non-citizens take advantage of welfare programs. That's ridiculous. We support these nations with foreign aid, and then they send us their poor, and we've got to support them here as taxpayers. We've got to draw the line someplace. We should be a compassionate nation, but we should not be a nation that doles out freebies. we've got to do what we can to get folks self-sufficient instead of creating a brand new class of folks that are going to be dependent on the government.
Yeah, speaking of compassion, you read some of those stories of the people coming from Africa, and I mean, it's horrifying what they've gone through. So there may be some real legitimate asylum claims in that process as well. So hopefully they can get that all sorted out. George, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. 19 minutes after the hour. Law and order on the rocks. Why this judge's behavior on the bench just machete is due in court today. Jatavian Hall is under arrest following a 2-day manhunt. Police say an 11-year-old boy attacked him with a machete when he broke into the kid's house in North Carolina. The child did not let him go without a fight.
I didn't do anything about it. He could have taken me with him. He could have done anything.
He's a little kid, and he's brave. Hall went to a hospital but escaped before police could track him down. Escaped from the hospital. They eventually found him at his mom's house under arrest.
He deserves some sort of reward there.
Yeah, that kid's great.
Hundreds of people marched to protest the planned release of a killer. Richard Librera was found guilty of murdering 16-year-old Paula Bohoveski in 1980. A parole board voted to release him next month, but former NYPD Lieutenant Dr. Darren Porcher says it should be reconsidered.
Right, this was a horrific offense, to say the least. We had a 16-year-old that was brutally raped and killed by these two assailants. I've yet to see any remorse being displayed by either the two assailants. Definite candidates for mandatory incarceration for the rest of their lives.
Wow, protesters calling on Governor Cuomo to step in to urge the board to reconsider. Robert McCain was also convicted in Bohoveski's murder. He faces a parole board this week.
More than 2,700 court cases could be re-examined after a judge is accused of going to work drunk. William Marshall's family filed guardianship papers in February to gain control of his personal affairs. They claim he repeatedly missed work as a common pleas judge in Ohio. Court documents show he was hospitalized 3 times for alcoholism since 2013.
Oh, this is a scary situation here. A shark attack sends an 8-year-old boy to the hospital. The child swimming off the coast when he was bit on the leg. He's expected to make a full recovery. This incident marks the 3rd shark attack in North Carolina this month. 2 weeks ago, a 17-year-old was bitten and needed her leg amputated. And a 19-year-old boy was bit on the foot while surfing. You're seeing an increase of that.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah. All right, a toddler called a dolphin whisperer for making new friends at SeaWorld. Check it out.
Daisy, they like your toy.
They just love her. That's 3-year-old Paisley showing her pink dolphin toy to real dolphins at the Orlando theme park. The animals all assembling against the glass to get a closer look. How cool is that? We love that. Elizabeth Warren has a chance to steal the spotlight next week because she won't face Biden or Sanders in the debate. So what would President Trump think if she won the nomination?
I think she's probably going to run against you, Elizabeth Warren.
I hope so.
Dismissed the lead prosecutor from Gallagher's war crimes case for secretly tracking emails with the defense's legal team.
And Mexico will have 6,000 National Guard troops along its southern border by tomorrow. It's all part of a new plan to crack down on the flow of migrants moving through Mexico into the United States amid a lot of pressure by the United States and that potential for tariffs. Soldiers stopping 4 trucks this weekend in Mexico, carrying nearly 800 people.
All right, well, today marks 25 years since O.J. Simpson's infamous Bronco chase. Now the convicted criminal is on social media. Jeff Paul has more on how O.J. says he plans to set the record straight about that fateful day.
Hey, Twitter world, this is yours truly.
Just days after the 25th anniversary of the brutal killings of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, O.J. Simpson launches an official Twitter account.
You'll get to read all my thoughts and opinions on just about everything.
Simpson, now 71 years old, tweeted a video message to followers Friday night.
Now, there's a lot of fake O.J. accounts out there, so this one, at the real O.J. 32, is the only official one.
Also known as The Juice, the former NFL player joins the platform nearly 2 years after his release from prison.
This should be a lot of fun. I got a little getting even to do.
In 1994, Simpson's ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman were killed in a gruesome white Bronco chase before surrendering. All of it unfolding in a live broadcast around the world.
Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
In 1995, Simpson was acquitted after a highly publicized trial that became known as the trial of the century. However, he was later found liable in a wrongful death lawsuit filed by the victims' families. Simpson's legal troubles did not end there. In 2008, Simpson was convicted of kidnapping and armed robbery stemming from an altercation in a Las Vegas hotel room the year before. Simpson was sentenced to 33 years, but was granted parole in 2017 after serving only 9 years. In its first 3 days, Simpson's account garnered more than 500,000 followers. In Los Angeles, Jeff Paul, Fox News.
Well, Ron Goldman's sister Kim will join us in the 7 o'clock hour of Fox and Friends to react to OJ's latest comments. For now, many of you on social media are outraged. Roland tweets, quote, really disturbing to see that people are actually following OJ Simpson. Why? Zachary on Twitter says OJ Simpson is tweeting he should be in a cell, not on one. And Colton on Twitter says, for the record, I blocked OJ Simpson. I have no interest in hearing what is on the mind of a murderer. Life is short. Be careful who you follow. Wow. Rob.
All right, back to politics now. The stages are set and Elizabeth Warren is in prime position to really take over the big first debate for the Democrats. No other top Democratic candidate is in her group, which is the first night of the 2 nights of debates. And with a serious surge in the polls lately, could Elizabeth Warren be preparing a push to the top? Here to debate that is Fox News political analyst Gianna Caldwell and Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright. Hey, guys, thanks for coming on this morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Antoine, I want to start with you. I know Joe Biden still is in the lead, but it looks like he's moving in the wrong direction at this point, and Elizabeth Warren is moving in the right direction. What do you think?
Well, I don't know about that. I think she definitely is enjoying the benefits from laying out a very aggressive policy agenda over the past several weeks. And the truth of the matter is she is taking votes away or support away from the person who has been running second to Joe Biden, and that's Bernie Sanders. And arguably, she is pulling some support away from Mayor Pete. And so I think she's enjoying definitely some support to this point. I think that's because she is laying out a very aggressive policy agenda that really speaks to the hearts and the minds of the voters. But I caution everyone that it's still early. There's a lot of ball left to be played. And at the end of the day, what matters the most is what happens in South Carolina. And to this point, according to the most recent poll that came out yesterday, Joe Biden enjoys favorability and flavorability among African-American voters in South Carolina.
Okay. All right. We're going to go to Gianna now. Antoine makes a good point. I mean, she's moving up probably because she's so focused on policy. She's a worker bee, and I think that gets a lot of respect. What do you think?
Well, I think Antoine is correct. She's laid out an aggressive plan, one including reparations, free school, and a bunch of other things free. When we think about the fact that she is moving up, and I know President Trump has commented on her potentially being the nominee, this would be very good for Donald Trump. This would be very good for Republicans in general. I know that a lot of people have turned to socialism as something in which they support. If you're a young person, specifically between the ages of 18 and 24, over 60% of you view socialism in a positive way. So considering those different elements and what the Democratic Party has done, and Elizabeth Warren specifically with her policy proposals, it puts the Democrats in a problematic lane in terms of actually being able to defeat President Trump.
Let's take a look at the head-to-head. Let's take a look real quick, Antoine, the head-to-head matchup between Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump. Right now, a lot of Democrats are enjoying a polling lead over the president. Warren's, though, is one of the tightest ones at 43-41. Biden beats the president by more than that, so does Sanders. But what Elizabeth Warren does right is she does identify to a lot of people a lot of the problems that we do have in this country. Now, I don't know about her solutions, but when she talks about getting rid of lobbying, she talks about the rampant corporate greed, middle class being squeezed in this country. I think she scores a lot of points there. But Antoine, is she likable enough to actually be the president of the United States and to win that election? Because a lot of people don't connect with her.
Well, that's yet to be determined, but I want to push back on something my dear friend Giuliano said. He and his party label anything that's bold and aggressive as socialism because they have no true policy
reparations
response.
Is bold and aggressive?
The Republicans,
reparations is bold and aggressive.
The Republicans and Donald Trump only want to have a personality battle, and the Democrats want to have a policy battle.
No, we actually have a track record of success.
About policy, you all want to turn it into a personality conversation.
I keep asking you, reparation is a serious policy? We're talking about the economy is doing beyond well. We're talking about what Republican and conservative policies have done for America. Liberalism has failed
I got to cut in because it's turning into a barking match. We're going to go on to topic 2 here. We're going to talk about AOC for a second. And this tension between, I think, the far left portion of Antoine, your party, and where Nancy Pelosi is trying to ride this thing, which is to kind of keep it a little bit more civil toward the president to not rally up his supporters. Let's listen to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I believe that there is a very real animus and desire to make sure that we are holding this president to account. I think that we have a very real risk of losing the presidency to Donald Trump if we do not have a presidential candidate that is fighting for true transformational change.
Okay, Giuliano, first for just 15 seconds. Don't have a lot of time. What do you think?
Well, first and foremost, majority of Americans believe that President Trump is going to win a second term. I do agree. It's difficult to fight against a track record of success when we talk about economic policy. His biggest issue, though, is his behavior on Twitter and some of the things he says because suburban women have voted against him in places like DuPage County and Orange County and California.
Right. Antoine, what do you think? I mean, it sounds like AOC is nervous about President winning in 2020.
No, I think Democrats, particularly in the Congress, just has to stay focused on what they're doing. That's passing legislation
it's
that
the Wild
American
Wild
people
West now.
want. I think at the end of the day, I think that we all want to hold this president accountable, particularly as Democrats, because we did not see that from the Republicans. We have different opinions up under the big tent called the Democratic Party.
Republicans push back when they disagree with the president.
I commend Speaker Pelosi for doing a tremendous job of balancing the various components of her caucus, and I think we're on the right track.
Yeah.
House way.
Yeah, she's got a tough. We got to cut it there, but she does have a heck of a tough job. I can tell you that right now,
It's the Wild
gentlemen.
West with the Democratic caucus right now.
Exactly why the American people are responding the way they are towards the Democrats, because they're enjoying what you label as the Wild Wild West.
We got to cut it off. I'm getting chewed out of my ear, guys, from the producers. Gentlemen, we do appreciate your time as always, and I know you'll be back. All right. Right now, several states under severe weather warnings as some very powerful storms are moving across the country. Take a look at this possible, well, that looks like a tornado to me, but they're still calling it a possible tornado in Greenfield, Oklahoma. It's unclear if anyone was hurt.
And in Texas, heavy rain and wind sparking flash flooding warnings. This funnel cloud spotted near Fort Worth. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Meteorologist Janice Dean live here in the studio tracking the storms and some violent ones, right?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to see the potential for more severe storms today and through the work week in some of the same areas. We've got a stuck pattern across parts of the Plain States in towards the mid-Atlantic. We have a severe thunderstorm watch for parts of Texas, including the Austin area, where we could see some large hail, damaging winds, certainly isolated tornadoes throughout the day today. And then we're going to sort of show you the broader area of showers and thunderstorms across parts of the mid-Atlantic, stretching across the high plain states. So a couple of areas we're going to watch throughout the day today and into the overnight for stronger storms. You know, I don't think we're going to see a tornado outbreak, but we certainly could see some really damaging winds. And then the flooding rainfall is something we're going to have to watch because some of these areas could receive several inches in a very short period of time. There's one of our forecast models as we go through the next several days. Again, areas that don't need to see any more rain are going to see rain. And then across the mid-Atlantic as well as the Northeast for much of the work week. Here's your forecast today. So we could see the potential for showers, thunderstorms, and stronger storms for parts of the Plain States across the Gulf Coast, Texas, up towards the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. I mean, I kind of like the fact that we have nice weather on the weekends and then maybe the work week isn't so good.
Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Unless you have a golf game this week.
I do have another one today, actually.
I'll see.
For another 9/11 charity. So
oh, well,
we need some better weather. I think we're going to be okay here in New York, though, right?
I mean, mostly cloudy with a chance of a thunderstorm. You know what to do.
Yeah.
Right?
We got to hide.
There's lightning, you get out of there.
Janice, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
I need to teach you well.
41 minutes after the hour, the president calls a new bill to ban burning American flags a no-brainer, but the left is up in arms. Why our next guest, a Marine veteran, says they only care because it forces them to take a stand.
And the mad dash to make a connecting flight could soon be a thing of the past. An airline just invented a tool to make sure the plane doesn't leave.
Responders. And now the former Daily Show host tells Fox News victims are tired of asking for help.
I think this community is at the end of the rope. I think there's a feeling of disbelief that they can't understand why they have to continually saddle up and ride down to Washington and make these appeals for something.
Every single person, and then you also participate in, in taking billions of dollars of government subsidies. I think that could be part of it.
Well, Amazon responded to AOC's comments saying these allegations are absurd. Amazon associates receive industry-leading pay starting at $15 an hour. And you may remember when Ocasio-Cortez fought against Amazon building a second headquarters in New York, which cost the city an estimated 25,000 jobs and $4 billion in annual wages. So she's still at it. Well, now some business news for you. Turmoil at Target as the retail giant is crippled by outages across the country. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network, Fox Business, is here with what went wrong. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. It was a rough weekend for Target, a rough weekend for people shopping at Target. Target reported 2-hour outages at stores across the country on Saturday afternoon. That is prime shopping time. They say that this was an error caused by maintenance that was going on during their system. So not only did they have issues on Saturday, but also an unrelated issue on Sunday that caused major outages for people trying to make purchases with credit cards. So Target putting out a statement saying that neither incident was a security incident and that no payment information was compromised during that time. But people on social media were complaining about the long lines on Saturday, saying that it was much worse than Black Friday.
They were all over social media,
Yes.
and then journalists saying, if you're at a Target having problems, let us know.
Let us know.
So it turned into a huge thing.
Yes.
So let's talk about what could possibly become a huge thing, wine for breakfast.
Yes, it is officially rosé season. Driscoll's, though, taking a little bit of a twist here, making rosé flavored and colored strawberries and raspberries. Now, they say they have the sweetness of peaches, but they look very much like the rosé wine. They have the aromas of a dry rosé wine. Driscoll's, though, say that they did use traditional breeding systems and processes to make these and that they are GMO free.
So where would they be located in the grocery store?
Just in the wine section or very
I was
good
gonna
question.
say, because, you'd have to be a little careful with what you're feeding your kids.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Heather.
Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 8 minutes until the top of the hour, and the president and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez actually agreeing on something.
I think that we have a very real risk of losing the presidency to Donald Trump if we do not have a presidential candidate that is fighting for true transformational change in the lives of working people in the United States.
And, of course, President Trump grabbed onto that using AOC's words against her, tweeting in part, I agree. And this is the only reason they played the impeach card, which cannot be legally used. The New York Democrats shooting back, though, saying, quote, opening an impeachment inquiry is exactly what we must do when the president obstructs justice, advises witnesses to ignore legal subpoenas, and more. AOC is one of at least 64. Girl becomes the youngest person ever to climb an iconic mountain at Yosemite National Park. It took Selah Schneider 5 days to complete the 3,000-foot nose route on El Capitan. She celebrated with some pizza, of course. Now the bad. A man thought he was spending $9,000 on a villa in an online government auction, but this is what he got. The villa actually turned out to be a 1 by 100-foot strip of land between two driveways. It's worth about $50, by the way. The man asked Florida's Broward County to void the deal. He claims that he was told state law does not allow refunds. Read the fine print. And finally, the ugly. A Mariah Carey superfan wanted a Mariah-themed birthday cake, but instead she got one with Nobel Prize winning scientist Marie Curie. Instead, the cake mix-up prompting a special shout-out, the real Mariah tweeting, "This could have been me if only I hadn't failed remedial